Hey guys, yes, welcome back. And today I'm telling you about how to sell plants from home. And I'm going to share my exact process for selling seedlings for a profit without buying anything that you really don't need. So I've done this for several years, and this is my exact process that I use to grow, price, and sell my seedlings. You can see here, this is an example of several tomato seedlings that grow. I grow tomatoes every year. I have seedlings that are nice, beautiful, vigorous, healthy. I sell them for a profit every year, and I'm here to tell you exactly how I do that. So after you watch this video, you'll know exactly how much money you can make per plant, exactly which plants that you should grow and sell, how to plant or how to price each plant for your maximum profit, and the marketing methods that will work for you. So just watch. If you've ever wondered, pull up a chair, get some tea, coffee, whatever it is that floats your boat, get something to write things down, or just save this video and you'll have everything you need. So let's dive right into it. I want to be very respectful of your time. I know you could be anywhere and you're with me, and I do appreciate that. So, here's how to sell seedlings. First of all, you have to decide which plants that you want to sell. And the first thing that I do is I start with what I already grow. That is a really good idea for me. I grow based on what people like to eat because I do sell the vegetables that I grow. So I am always going to grow what I already grow. The second thing I'm going to do is do some market research at my local farmers market. Now, there might be some things that are at the farmers market in terms of seedlings that I hadn't thought to sell or I hadn't thought to grow, but if folks are buying them, guess what? I should also have them as well. So let's say, for example, that you might only grow the food that you like to eat. And so let's say you don't grow cucumbers because you don't like cucumbers. But then you go to the farmer's market and you see there are a lot of people who are selling and actually doing very well selling some cucumbers, then you probably should grow cucumbers. See, you're not committing to eating those foods. You're just committing to growing them for sale. And that's something that I would recommend that you do. And finally, I want you to offer plants that can be difficult for the average gardener to grow. Think about things like asparagus seedlings. Asparagus seedlings are a great one. You can get a packet of heirloom asparagus seeds from Baker Creek for $4. Let's say that you get, I don't know, 70 seeds. You plant all of those for 40 bucks or for $4. You tend to them for 6, 8 weeks, and then you can sell for 70, however many live, you can sell those seedlings for 15, $20. And so it becomes a profitable endeavor for you when you look at things that way. If you have grow lights, you're good at growing, you can grow these things that are a little bit off the beaten path. So think about things like asparagus, artichokes. That's not something that your average gardener will try to grow for themselves. And you want to maximize your ability. If you've got grow lights, you've invested in any grow lights at all, you have the ability to grow indoors, which most gardeners don't. You want to be able to provide them with things that would be nice for them to have in their garden, but that they wouldn't have normally. A lot of big box retailers just are not going to grow things like asparagus seedlings. I have seen it once. I've seen asparagus seedlings in my local Lowe's one time, and there was probably 20 asparagus seedlings for $10. And I was like, you know what? That's a good deal for most gardeners. For $10, they've got 20 asparagus crowns. Now, yes, if you have asparagus seedlings that just sprouted, you're going to have to tend to them for another year before they are, at least another year, before you can harvest anything off of them. But a person buying asparagus knows that. So they understand the value. There's always a value. So offer plants that can be difficult to grow or that have a perceived difficulty. Herbs are great for this, like your woody herbs like rosemary, thyme, uh, herbs like dill. Dill's not woody, but it's very, lots of people love dill. It's pretty easy to grow. It has a high perceived value. It's not something that most of your gardeners are going to start. Let me think of some other things. If you have some specialty squash, like specialty winter squash or pumpkin types or butternut squash varieties that maybe are interesting to you, but that you haven't found anywhere else. Just think of those kinds of things, right? Think about offering something that people love to eat, but they had not considered growing themselves. You can really eke out or like kind of create your own corner of the market by doing that. So now that you know what you're going to sell, you need to decide what number of plants are you going to sell. So this is how I decide the number of plants I'm going to sell. Now I plant in huge or big, flats and trays. So if, let's say, for example, if I grow 128 tomato plants, if I start 128 in one tray and I only need 75, then I'll sell the rest. Or if I only need 100, I'll sell the rest. So that's kind of how I decide. I'm not using room under my grow lights specifically for selling because I already was going to use that tray anyway. But you could decide, and that's based on how much room you have under grow lights. Your grow light space is a precious, precious resource. It is controlled, it is lit under specific conditions, and that is going to be your limiting factor when you decide, what you're going to do. So think about how much room you have under grow lights, and think about not only how many plants you can fit when they first germinate, but by the end of their life, when they're in 3-inch pots and they're almost ready to sell, if you have to put them under grow lights, would you be able to do that? So think about the amount of space that they're going to take up their entire lifespan. Also, think about if that's no limit, like if you could grow any number under grow lights, then you have to think about how much money can you spend on supplies? How much money can you put in up front before you get the money back for the seedlings? So that's something you want to take a hard look at. And I will have resources down under this video so you can just click on them, take a look around and see what things are costing in terms of supplies right now. And then finally, think about how much time you have to take care of your plants. Now, it's not super intensive at first, specifically at first, it's really not. It's super fun at first because they're babies, they're little, there's lots of room under the grow lights. Every day is something different. But about 3, 4, 5 weeks into it, they will start to get bigger than the space that they're in. You have to decide, when am I going to pot them up? Where am I going to put them after I pot them up? So just think about how much time you have to devote to that. You're going to want to check on them in the morning, make sure they've got enough water, make sure your lights are working properly, and you're going to want to look in on them at night and make sure that you have them in the right place for whatever temperatures you will encounter. If you are growing tender annuals, just know that you have to make sure they don't get below freezing or all of your hard work will be gone. So that's why you want to price them properly, because you're putting your time and effort into this and you want to make sure that you have done your homework. So here are a couple in this screen you see here. We have a couple different greenhouses. And then so that far left greenhouse is the first greenhouse I ever had. And it's about 4 years old now, and I have seedlings in it. I'm looking at them right now. But these guys, I started, and this, you can see that all my seedlings have germinated. Most of these were for the garden. To the top right, you can see my onions. You can also see, it looks like I've got some brassicas down in the bottom right. I've got peppers coming up in the very bottom. Then on the left, I've got my tomato extravaganza, and in the middle. So probably I have some lettuce in there as well. So this picture, based on the lack of leaves on the trees, was probably taken sometime in February or beginning of March. And they've been in the greenhouse. They're rocking and rolling. You can see that little heater that I have on the floor of the greenhouse, the plywood floor. that is how I use a Bluetooth thermometer, and I have set some alarms that will sound on my phone, my smartphone. So I use that heater to heat up my greenhouse at night to make sure that that space stays above freezing. And like I said, I have a Bluetooth thermometer that just hangs out in there, and it's hooked up to my phone, and it tells me when my temperature is outside of the limits that I have set for it. So that's how I keep my babies ready until they are ready to sell. And then once they get big enough, a couple weeks before I plan to start selling them, I will harden them off, and I'll put them along my back porch railing, which is just outside the photo. You can't see it. It's to the left and around the back. You can kind of see those bricks lined up across the back of the greenhouse. That's actually my railing of my back porch. So that's my setup. That's been my setup now. And this middle picture is my new greenhouse. It's 3 years old, 2 or 3 years old. No, no, this will be the third season with this greenhouse. And this is where I potted things up. You can see on the far left or the far right, you can see I've got my supplies here, and I'm potting up little baby tomatoes. It looks like I've got some Ruby Dawn tomatoes I was potting up. And to the right, you could just barely make out, I have 2.5-inch square Bootstrap Farmer pots that I'm putting those into. So I'm just potting up in the greenhouse, probably listening to a podcast. And that is part of the process. That's what it looks like. So now we're in the process where you've got seedlings that have come up. You're probably somewhere around this picture here. And you want to know, oh, well, when can I sell? When should I sell? You want to know what your first and last frost dates are always for your growing area. And you want to have your seedlings ready to sell. It says a couple of weeks after your last frost date. Yeah, right around that last frost date. Most people here in the South, especially, they don't push that tomato too early into the ground. So my last frost date, depending on where you ask, is either April 8th or April 12th. Most people wait till the end of April to plant their tomatoes, just to be sure. It depends on you. It depends on your area. If you want to have your seedlings ready before that, then you're going to have to do some freezing management, some temperature management at night. If you want to make sure that you're okay from a temperature perspective, then you can just promise folks, hey, end of April or a couple weeks after your last frost date is when you'll shoot to have your plants. That's probably a good time, to have your plants ready is a couple weeks after your last frost date. And here's a pro tip for you. For your first spring seedling sale, I don't want you to include succession plantings. So I don't want you to worry about, oh, well, if I'm selling lettuce or if I'm selling something that people will want to plant throughout the spring and summer, should I plan on offering those? Should I have several spring seedling sales? And I'm going to say the answer is no. I would like for you to focus on that one awesome first seedling sale, see how it goes. I don't think you need to bite off so much that, like, I don't know anywhere or anybody who plants successions for sale other than plug stores like Farmer Bailey or, Banner Greenhouses, and there are others. Those stores, though, they don't really, those companies, they don't do succession planting per se, but what they do is you could order whatever you want, whenever you want. You just have to order it and then know when it's going to be ready, and then you commit to it. Usually you pay a deposit and then they plant them for you. So it's kind of like commission growing. But nobody that I know goes out on a limb to have succession plantings planted and available for sale without an order in hand first. So don't add that to your stuff. So the next step here is you're going to gather your supplies. You're obviously going to need seeds. You're going to need containers. Now those containers are most likely going to be two types. The first is your seed cell trays to germinate in, and then you're going to pot up into whatever you plan to sell in. So you're going to need two types of containers. Your seed trays that you'll germinate in are going to be reusable for you. And then you're going to want to choose containers for potting up that you're okay with including in the price of the seedling and letting it go and saying goodbye, right? You're not going to ask for that back, unless you just live in an awesome neighborhood and you can ask for it back and they're happy to give it to you. Otherwise, you're going to want to give them some sort of disposable container or something that maybe, is compostable, or some people use newspaper and pot up or do a seedling sale and put seedlings in newspaper. And I've seen that work before. So at any rate, you need to figure out your containers. The next thing you need is your soil and grow lights. Now, since you're selling, you do want to invest in some grow lights. It's way too much hassle, and you're going to need a grow light, because trying to sell seedlings for a profit, seedlings that you like germinate in the window, it's too variable. You can't control it. There's really not enough light anyway. The idea would be nice to be able to like grow a garden, just by germinating seeds in your windowsill, but it's not practical. When you're selling, you want to be able to rely on what you're doing. You're running a business. And so what that means is you need to turn a light on for a certain number of hours a day, turn it off, make sure it turns on the next day, and so on. So invest in some grow lights. Again, you'll see some recommendations down below this video to help you. And finally, this is the good part. This is the fun part that I like talking about. This is my favorite part, and usually what people find the most useful. This is my pricing formula, okay? So you're going to start with the cost of all of your inputs, the cost per seedling. So take the volume of everything you bought, like your seeds, your soil, your trays, and figure out what that cost is for a single seedling that you're selling. So the soil in that cup, the container cost, what is the cost of the seeds? You're going to take all of that together, add it all together, multiply that number by 3. That is your break-even point. Why am I multiplying by 3, right? Some people say, oh, well, multiplying by 2 should be enough. Well, according to what? Like, what are you basing that on? I've been in business for several years, and I can tell you that businesses need things like insurance. You need to pay tax. You have to have, there are lots of things that you have to cover, the supplies. Like, there's so many different expenses that you don't want to, you don't want to price yourself into a hole. And that's the number one thing I see people do. They think that because they are the small guy, because they're growing and it's just them, they don't have the confidence to charge. Please charge. You are selling a quality product and you should price it as such. So your break-even point is cost of inputs times 3. Now you might go a little less or a little lower, a little more, but in general, this has worked for me season after season. Then you're going to take that break-even point and you're going to double it. And that's going to give you the average number to charge for your seedling. Now, after that, you can adjust up. If you are first to market with something and no one else has it, add a little bit to that price, because there is a big demand for your product. And if the demand is high, sell it for more money. Okay. If you are selling at the end of the season and the market's flooded and you're not sure if you can get as high a price, take a little off of that. But that is your average price that you want to be charging across all of your seedlings. So let's take a look at this as an example. If my per seedling cost is 40 cents, so the cost of a seed, the cost of my container, and the cost of my soil is 40 cents. Then I'm going to multiply that 40 cents by 3 to get my break-even price of $1.20. That means that if I sell that seedling for $1, I'm losing money. That means if I'm selling that seedling for $1.20, I'm not losing, but I'm not making anything. I'm doing this out of the goodness of my heart, and actually, you probably are losing because of the time involved. So you're going to take your break-even price and you're going to double it. And that is going to be your average price of $2.40. Now, what I might do, depending on the timing of it, like $2.40 for a single seedling is a great price. Now, if it's a novelty item, if it's harder to grow, if it's stayed under my grow lights for a while, I might bump that up a little bit. But I know that if I sell that at $2.40, then I am in good shape. Okay. And so that gives you the confidence to get out there and market your product, sell your product with the confidence it takes to really make a profit. Because one thing that people forget, it's really true, but they forget it, is that part of having a sustainable business is to have a business that makes enough profit that you can sustain it, that it makes sense for you to keep doing it. Something's not sustainable if it doesn't make sense for you to do it. And it doesn't make sense to do it if you're not making money on it. Okay. So let me see. Oh, now we are at, we know what we're going to grow. We know when we're going to sell it. We know what we're going to pay or charge for it. Now, where are we going to sell these babies? So you can go to existing farmers markets in your area. So start looking now to find out what you need to do to get a table there. You can look into local pop-ups and festivals. You may want to rent a table. Anytime your community has an event and you've got seedlings, right, and that you haven't sold, think about getting a table and putting those seedlings out there. You would be so surprised at how profitable that can be. There are lots of little community events, and they're always looking for people to have a table, and maybe having a table means you give them 25 bucks. Well, if you sell 10 seedlings, at this place, you're getting your name out there. You've got a card, you've got a table. It is great. It's great business. And you honestly could set up and be ready to have a table, quote unquote, really quickly. Like, you might not even know. I could be sitting here right now with you. Today is February 5th. You might not have an idea at all what event your neighborhood has first, second week of May, but I guarantee you they will. And so if you have the ability to buy a table last minute, somebody drops out, they need someone to step in and cover it, you could be really, really happily surprised at what you are able to do in a scenario like that. So just keep your eye open for stuff like that. The third is a roadside stand. You could set up your own roadside stand. I have a roadside stand at the end of a dead end, which is where ours is. It does well. We sell lots of seedlings from that roadside stand. I also sell vegetables out of it and, prep things, but that's another story for another video. If you've seen my farm stand video, you know that I have a farm stand. So you could do that. And then finally, you can, while you're doing all of these things, right? You're not doing just one of them. You're doing farmers markets and pop-ups and roadside stands and Facebook Marketplace. Facebook Marketplace is like a commerce area all of its own. It's hyper local. You can post a listing about your seedlings and just have that listing up for a long time and make really good money and connections with that. And Facebook Marketplace is free to list. You could throw a few dollars into that listing to boost it so that more people see it. You can decide how long they see it. You can add photos and videos and anything you want, and you can sell things on Facebook Marketplace. So you're going to be able to move those seedlings and take notes when you do. Make sure you know what's working for you, what's not. Keep detailed records and journals. And and then if you decide to do it and you make some profit, you can do it next year and maybe expand. You'll learn what varieties people liked, what they didn't, and you can make things better that way. Hold on, I'm making myself a note right here. Okay, so these are my last tips, my 4 last tips. I appreciate you if you've been with me this entire video. You could have been anywhere. You chose to be with me, and I really appreciate it. Number 1, make sure you have a good variety of plants. 2, be prepared to answer any questions your customers might have about growing those plants, right? Like, you got those plants to a certain age, you're selling those babies off, and you want to give them all the info they need to make sure they're able to grow them. Number 3, you're going to print out some informational flyers about growing those vegetables. That's always a great idea. And finally, you should consider putting together and printing out recipes that use those vegetables, especially if they are an obscure veggie, like an artichoke or asparagus or some sort of vegetable they haven't used in the past. Customers absolutely love the easier the sale is, and it's an easy sell it's an easier sell when you have tips on how to grow, tips on how to eat it. So that's all I had planned for this. This is all you need to have a great seedling sale. Please drop a note down below and let me know if you plan on selling. I am so excited, and let me know how it goes. and ask any questions you might have about how to sell seedlings, and I'll answer them for you. Thanks a lot. Bye for now.